Social and emotional development in middle childhood. Though physical growth in middle childhood, ages 6 to 12 years, slows to just a few inches per year, there is critical social and emotional growth in this developmental period. In middle childhood, there is a stronger sense of what it means to be a responsible, contributing member of a family first and then of society. Middle childhood is a time for learning the skills that one's culture considers important. Middle childhood is a transitional stage of co-regulation. Parent and child share power. Parents oversee, and child makes moment-by-moment decisions. Between 9 and 11 years, children become more negative. The basic issue is who is in charge here? The crisis of middle childhood is found in Erikson's fourth stage of psychosocial development, industry versus inferiority, 6 to 12 years old. These are the elementary school years. Children enjoy learning new things, especially when these accomplishments are valued by others. Children have more household chores and more responsibility. They learn the value of sticking to something and the pleasure of a job well done. The willingness to work hard as a child is a strong predictor of success as an adult, even stronger than intelligence and family background. Children handle criticism better at this stage than at other stages. Peers are more important now, and the child has to balance home, school, and neighborhood worlds. Children who are compared to others and come up a distinct second develop inferiority rather than industry. Successful resolution of the industry inferiority crisis allows the emergence of competence. Children who experience school success and effective problem solving and coping are obtaining what Erikson called a sense of industry. They believe in themselves and their own competence, and they initiate activity. They embrace learning and work hard to arrive at a goal. Authoritative parenting helps the development of industry. Parents set clear, consistent rules so children know what is expected of them. This gives them internal control and allows them to consider the demands of the outside world. The self-concept of preschoolers is concrete and describes physical traits like color of hair or physical activities like going to nursery school. The self-concept of children in middle childhood becomes more psychological and describes inner thoughts and feelings and abilities like being shy or kind or being good in something like writing or math problems. It also includes social group membership like being a fourth grader or a scout or a ball team player, and a sense of gender along with gender stereotypes like playing football and being rough and making bodily noises like boys do, or dancing and being cheerleaders and playing dolls and dressing pretty like girls do. Burping and expelling gas, or like my children used to say, making stink bombs, are reserved activities for boys and not considered an offense by boys unless done by a girl. Gender-appropriate behavior is, for the most part, stricter for boys and more flexible for girls. It is okay for girls to play teen ball, but it is not okay for boys to take ballet or play with dolls. Being a tomboy is more acceptable than being a boy interested in girl activities. Girls are more gender flexible in their thinking, and boys are more rigid. However, as children mature, they become more gender flexible. especially if they have a high SES mother who has a non-traditional job, or if they have parents who think more flexibly about gender roles. Children in middle childhood have more self-control and are more able to delay gratification. They believe, due to the way they act, their behavior, they are responsible for social successes. They are also more considerate for the feelings of others. When they do not measure up to internal standards of loyalty and kindness, they are more apt to feel guilty and to either justify or compensate for their misbehavior. Children in middle childhood can also better distinguish between what people really think and feel and what they actually say and do. Self-esteem is the value that we place on self-concept, or it is the picture we have of our abilities and strengths. Children with high self-esteem are generally cheerful and capable of productive work. If they feel strongly about something, they will risk making people angry. Children in middle childhood value physical appearance and popularity the most. Children accept parental authority as being for their own good, but must still be closely monitored. Parents should know where they are at all times. Discipline techniques can contribute to self-control and self-regulation. The best results come with authoritative techniques. Techniques which establish clear boundaries and rules, but also use problem-solving skills, reasoning, and communication. Authoritative techniques do not focus only on stopping bad behavior. Equally, if not more importantly, authoritative techniques foster pro-social or good behavior instead. Authoritarian techniques are inconsistent and aversive, with shouting and physical whippings and punishments. These techniques can increase noncompliance and aggression and blaming others for own mistakes. By 7 or 8 years, children fully internalize shame and pride. They can better understand and control negative emotions. Emotions are suppressed for self-protection, to avoid ridicule and rejection, or to prevent upsetting someone. 5th graders are less likely to show sadness and pain in front of their fathers than in front of their mothers. The ability to experience emotion is linked with empathy and pro-social behavior. Girls aged 9 to 18 years who show anxiety disorders grow up to be, on average, 1 to 2 inches shorter. This may be due to anxiety disorders affecting the brain's release of growth hormones. Parents who wish to exert a positive influence on their children's emotional growth should encourage them to express feelings constructively. Misbehavior and acting out may be an outward expression of emotional turmoil. Tall tales and increases in lying mean more past the age of 6 to 7 years. This kind of behavior may point to insecurity, seeking attention and esteem, and showing hostility to parents. Stealing is also a way of showing hostility. Depression is an affective or mood disorder that goes beyond normal temporary sadness. The victim is unable to have fun or concentrate, is fatigued or is overactive, suffers apathy, crying, sleep problems, either too much or not enough, feelings of worthlessness, weight change, physical complaints, frequent thoughts of death or suicide. Depression brings lower energy levels, which can affect school performance and result in lowered self-esteem. Any 5 of the symptoms I mentioned for 2 weeks may mean depression. Psychological help is needed. Some studies have shown that antidepressants are no more effective than placebos in treating children and adolescents for depression. The jury is still out. According to Piaget, moral reasoning, thinking processes in judging right and wrong, is part of cognitive development. He divided it into 2 subtypes, depending on maturity level. Heteronymous and autonomous are these 2 subtypes. Piaget taught that the first stage of moral development happens from 4 to 7 years of age. Rules are absolute and cannot be changed. Intention does not come into play. This stage is called heteronymous morality. It looks at justice and rules as unchangeable, made by all-powerful authorities, and out of the control of regular people. It arbitrarily considers the consequences or the results of the misbehavior. Breaking 12 eggs accidentally is a worse transgression than breaking 1 egg on purpose. Heteronymous thinkers believe in imminent justice, or justice that will be immediately forthcoming. Imminent justice also says that if something bad happens to someone, then that person had to have done something bad earlier to warrant the punishment. Another important factor in social development and identity formation. As they mature, children are more able to incorporate the concept of intent as well as the amount of damage in determining what is right and what is wrong. They also move from moral realism to a morality of cooperation. People make rules and people can change them, rather than rules are absolute. This second stage of moral development is called autonomous morality and occurs at age 10 years or above. It sees rules and laws as dependent on the intentions of the transgressor, as well as the consequences or results of the transgression. Laws are merely convenient, socially agreed upon rules that can be changed by consensus. Autonomous thinkers believe that punishment is not automatic following transgressions. It depends on witnesses. Between the ages of 7 and 10, children have features of both heteronymous and autonomous morality. Moral development increases with the give and take among peers. Peers share equivalent status without one having adult power and authority over the other. Negotiation skills are polished among peers, and much is learned about right and wrong. If parents want to take steps to assure maximum moral development for their children, they should encourage them to play with peers. At ages 11 to 12, according to Piaget, concepts of faith and belief spontaneously enter into a child's religious identity. Once high school and college are reached, there is an important developmental period for morality. The adolescent is being exposed to more moral concepts that contradict the ones already accepted. They are seeing for themselves that there is no clear-cut answer to what is right and wrong. They question things, resulting in the establishment of a moral system of their own. Moral reasoning is a social development issue as well as a cognitive development issue, because right and wrong are decided in large part by society and others. Lawrence Kohlberg is a psychologist who in 1985 and 1987 developed a theory of moral development. This theory focused on the ability to adopt the viewpoint of another person, called perspective taking. Until a person was able to do this, then he or she was unable to have a mature sense of right and wrong. Perspective taking involves more cognitive abilities than empathy does. So perspective taking and empathy are not the same thing. A key concept of perspective taking is internalization, the developmental change in behavior from external to internal control. Adopting as your own the external standards, rules, and principles of those authority figures who have guided you. Behavior happens even if there is no one around to watch or judge or enforce. This type of behavior is much more likely to happen if reasons are given for rules so that children can see their relevance. Conventions are rules and expectations that differ or vary from one group to the next, such as dating practices, and politeness rules like yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. Class rules about being late, talking, chewing gum, etc. These are all conventions. Moral issues are activities which would be wrong even if there were no rule forbidding them. They either physically or psychologically harm others, like stealing or cheating or lying. Moral dilemmas are situations in which no choice is clearly and indisputably right. By the book, something may be wrong, but due to extenuating circumstances, it may be extremely difficult to decide right from wrong. Let's talk about peers. Friendships are based first on physical proximity, like who lives next door or rides to play school with you, or cousins and siblings that go to all the family functions. Young children change friendships quickly based on acts of meanness or goodness. Then proximity is nudged aside by age. Friends are chosen from those who are the same age as you and have concrete, stable characteristics like willingness to share or help or play. Lastly, by the time of high school, friends are chosen on the basis of having values and beliefs that are similar to yours. These agree with you on what is cool, and they can keep a secret. Girl friendships are particularly strong. Children can be popular, neglected, rejected, or controversial. These adjectives refer to different kinds of peer status. Popular peers are happy youngsters who are easy to talk to. They listen carefully. They show concern and compliment their peers. Neglected children have few friends. They receive little positive or negative peer attention, but are not particularly disliked by anyone. They are more likely to interact with the same small group each day. Placing themselves in a negative light does not help them make friends, even though they may attempt to use this to make friends. To help neglected adolescents fit in better, training programs should emphasize the teaching of social skills and how to nurture their peers or make them feel better about themselves. You don't have to pull yourself down to make someone else feel better. Rejected youngsters have few friends. They're actively disliked by peers, and they are on no one's best friend list. The best predictor of whether a rejected child will become a delinquent or school dropout during adolescence is the display of peer aggression in grade school. To help rejected adolescents fit in better, training programs should focus on teaching them how to replace domination tendencies with the ability to really hear what others say, to interpret social cues correctly, to be less ready to jump the gun and assume things were done on purpose. Controversial children have both a best friend and are strongly disliked by some. In talking about the different kinds of peer status, popular, neglected, rejected, and controversial, I got ahead of myself and included teenagers. But let's go back to middle childhood. Peers become more important. By age 11, more time is spent with friends than with family. Children are more capable of establishing more mature friendships since they are able to understand the perspective, the needs, and the feelings of others. There are growing communication skills where a child is more able to show feelings and desires with words instead of just actions. There is more of a tendency to hurt with verbal insults and name-calling than to hit and push like preschoolers do. Children in middle childhood are more able to have loyalty and sharing of secrets. Friends are not just people to play with, but they are now people to turn to for help. More intense conflict is experienced with friends, but emotional connections are kept strong. Friendship networks are the hallmark of middle childhood. There is trust and reciprocity, and sharing is a must. Popularity is related to knowledge about how to make friends. Children who are rejected by their peers show increased levels of aggression, and rejection at age 8 or 9 predicts mental health problems once these rejected youngsters are adults. To gain peer acceptance, aggressive, rejected children need to be trained to perceive other children's intentions. Children in this stage have a blind allegiance to rules. Things are black or white, little gray area. Rules are absolute and must be obeyed to the letter in games. Boys and girls tend to segregate themselves into their own groups, but they are having the beginnings of mutual attraction and curiosity. Camaraderie with the opposite gender is taboo, unless the contact is accidental, like bumping in the crowded halls, or incidental. The other gender gets in line behind you in the cafeteria, or the contact is necessary, as having to ask an opposite gender child to please pass the ketchup, or the contact is ordered. The teacher assigns you to deliver something to the office with another of the opposite sex. If any of these conditions occur, then you are okay if you have a child of your same sex with you at the time, and if you make sure it is known that you're not the least bit interested in that opposite sex child. Sexual attraction, or those butterfly feelings, do not occur until the adrenal glands mature. This happens before puberty in the middle childhood era. Children do not voluntarily choose which gender is going to trigger those butterfly feelings. Neurological pathways and connections which were established with the help of circulating prenatal hormones in utero become activated. Children of homosexual orientation will try to fit in just like all the rest, as there is tremendous pressure to conform. Sexual orientation is well established before adolescence begins. Attempts to change it to suit what is more socially appropriate do not work and harm the psyche and self-esteem of the child. Sexual orientation is the emotional and erotic attraction toward members of the opposite sex, heterosexual, the same sex, homosexual, or both sexes, bisexual. Once established, sexual orientation is extremely resistant to change. Whether you are homosexual or heterosexual, you are just as unable to change your sexual orientation. Thus, homosexuality is not a preference or voluntary choice. Millions of Americans would not deliberately choose an orientation that is not socially accepted in many arenas. They would not deliberately choose to make life harder for themselves. Homosexuals do not choose their orientation any more than heterosexuals choose theirs. It is not a voluntary choice any more than heterosexuality is a voluntary choice. Divorce is more difficult for younger children who tend to blame themselves for the conflict. Avoid exposing the child to quarreling. And remember that the structure of the family itself, whether it has two parents or one, is not the key to healthy adjustment, but rather the key to healthy adjustment is a favorable atmosphere where parents are loving and supportive and really enjoy being with their children. This can't be faked. Girls are more likely to react with more anxiety, inhibition, and withdrawal to divorce. Boys are more likely to react with more aggression. But both are experiencing suffering. Girls tend to delay negative responses, maybe even as long as adolescence. But they also tend to react more negatively to the remarriage of their mothers than do boys. An added loss for boys is the loss of a male role model when divorce involves the absence of the father from the home. Factors that promote good adjustment for children after divorce include an end to parental conflict, an ongoing relationship with both parents. It involves the emotional health of the custodial parent. It involves the understanding that they, the children, are not responsible. It also includes authoritative parenting. These are all factors that promote good adjustment for children after divorce. Siblings in middle childhood provide a laboratory for learning how to resolve conflicts. Sibling rivalry is common, especially if the two children are male or if the older of the two is male. After age 8 years, there is more social comparison to decide who is smarter, better, stronger, etc. There is more competitiveness among siblings whose parents show preferential treatment. And of course, there is also the misperception that favoritism is at work when a child does not get his or her way. I can remember how my youngest would misperceive that favoritism was at work. "It's 'cause I'm adopted," she would tell me. And I would tell her, "Good try, sweetheart, but that's not going to work." Sibling relationships are life's longest and most enduring. The feelings that children in middle childhood have for their siblings are mixed with both positive and negative feelings. Children learn that mutual attachment remains even after anger is expressed. Older siblings learn leadership skills. Younger siblings learn negotiation skills and how to accept help from others. Sometimes sibling relationships make up for poor peer relationships. Firstborns tend to be bossy, more likely to attack, ignore, or bribe. Younger siblings tend to plead, reason, and compromise. Sibling help is more likely to be effective and accepted with siblings 4 years older and a sister rather than a brother. The school is an extremely important factor in the socialization of children in middle childhood. Hard work, achievement, obedience, neatness, punctuality, compliance to rules, competition, social comparisons, all of these are taught in school. There is a tendency for teachers to interact more with boys, giving them more positive feedback and criticizing high-achieving girls the most. Boys are corrected and criticized for misbehavior or being messy, but not for lacking intelligence, as are girls. When boys do not do well, teachers blame effort. When girls do not do well, teachers blame ability or intelligence. Classrooms that are cooperative and diverse promote more self-esteem among children than classrooms that are competitive. In late middle childhood, children who were held back in an earlier grade because of low academics tend to have more behavior problems than children of similar abilities who were not detained. Academic performances of both are comparable, so the held back children do no better academically and do worse behaviorally. School phobia. 4% of children are victims of this. School phobia is an unrealistic fear of going to school. There is an intense fear of leaving the primary caretaker parent. School phobia is a type of separation anxiety disorder with excessive anxiety for 4 weeks or more. Victims come from close-knit, caring families. The disorder may be triggered by the death of a pet or an illness or a move to a new school. Victims of school phobia are average or good students, aged 5 to 15 years of age. It hits girls and boys in equal numbers. Victims tend to act timid and inhibited when away from home and stubborn and demanding at home. Treatment should include steady but gradual return to school. Maybe stay longer each day until the whole day is weathered. Few people disagree with the need for immunizations for physical illnesses like polio, diphtheria, and measles. Yet psychological inoculations against depression are every bit as important for health and well-being. Optimism is the serum for an effective psychological inoculation. Reality-based optimism coupled with personal mastery skills. Optimism gives some semblance of control. Depression occurs when we are convinced we have no control, when we feel helpless and hopeless and pessimistic. Optimism prevents or vaccinates us against negative things like crippling depression. At the same time, while inoculating against depression, optimism also promotes positive things like achievement and success and resiliency. Optimism protects children and adults and arms them to withstand life's knocks and traumas. Optimism keeps will and motivation vibrant. It nourishes hope and expectation. Optimism is not a Pollyanna, pie-in-the-sky, feel-good, knee-jerk quality reserved for a privileged few. It is a vital quality needed by every person, and one that can be learned by any person. Optimism is not a pleasant, non-essential trait. It is not something a baby is either born with or not. Optimism is an absolute necessity. It is not a want, it is a need. Optimism is easier for some of us than it is for others. Some are born with a predisposition for it as part of their temperament, and some are fortunate enough while growing up to have experienced certain critical things. 6 of these crucial ingredients for the establishment of optimism are unconditional love, conditional praise, choices, emphasis on the positive, acceptance of mistakes as learning opportunities, and authoritative parenting. These 6 crucial ingredients can maximize child development. The first crucial ingredient, unconditional love. It is not dependent on performance. Nothing a child could ever do or not do would change this love. It is total, unbridled, unearned. This love exists because the child exists. Children should experience such unconditional love from their parents. They should be convinced that there is absolutely nothing that would endanger this love or place it in jeopardy. Parents should criticize the misbehavior, not the child. They may find fault with behavior, but they should leave the personality out of it. The worth of a child, the worth of a teenager, is not dependent on good behavior. You love him, you love her, no matter what. Goodness is there, no matter how well disguised it may be at the moment. Parents must be convinced of this in order to relay this necessary message to the child. When dealing with teenagers, parents have to understand that autonomy and questioning, these are healthy signs of development, not blatant signs of disrespect. These teenagers are still lovable creatures. The relationship that once existed between parent and used-to-be child has not regressed or become in any way inferior to the relationship between parent and present teenager. The relationships are changed, are different. They are transforming as the developments of both the adults and the child are evolving. This is not bad, it is good. It is also inevitable for the healthy launching of new productive adults into society. Every child, teenager, and adult deserve unconditional love. Each and every one deserves unconditional love. It is their birthright. Without it, there will not be maximum social and emotional development. With it, there is a greater chance, though not 100% guarantee. Unconditional love is extremely important, but it is not the only factor necessary. Parents cannot be too hard on themselves when, despite their best efforts, something goes amiss. Conditional praise is the second crucial ingredient. This is reserved for successes and honest attempts. Conditional praise must be earned to be credible. Unconditional praise may attempt to make the child feel good about self, to increase self-esteem, to value self, but it fails miserably. Praise must be earned, must be conditional, must be dependent on doing well. Then the positive self-esteem and valuing of self will follow automatically. Feelings of self-esteem are byproducts of doing well. It is not enough to encourage a child to feel good. You must teach the skills of doing well. Doing well brings feeling good automatically. So you must set the stage for daily successes. You make success inevitable. You're the adult. Encourage the child with "you can do it." Celebrate, affirm achievement and success. Break the task into small, manageable steps with rewards or praise along the way. Rather than demand that a child clean his or her room, suggest that a good start would be to pick up the dirty clothes, or the blocks, or the toys with wheels. Be available to notice and praise each successive approximation to the final goal, a clean room. This technique of breaking the task into small, manageable steps is called shaping and is a powerful operant conditioning technique. Celebrate achievement and success. Not only must the child succeed at something every single day, but he or she must be affirmed for the success. Part of the job description of a parent is to see to it that success is tasted every single day by every single child. For some little wildcats, it means creative searching, manufacturing conditions, setting things up so that failure is impossible. Appropriate actions and behaviors should be noticed and celebrated with believable praise that is specific and credible. I love the way you blended the colors in the sky, instead of, that is a beautiful picture. I really appreciate that you took the garbage out or did the bathroom, dishes, or whatever chore, without being reminded or asked to do it. Allow choices to be made whenever possible. This is the third crucial ingredient of establishing optimism. Would you like to wear the blue shirt or the red one? As many choices as possible present each day. Be careful to only submit workable choices. Would you like to climb into the tub by yourself, or do you want me to hold your hand? Not, would you like to take a bath or not? Would you like the light on or off at bedtime? Not, do you want to go to bed now or later? The fourth crucial ingredient, emphasis on the positive. A glass is half full rather than half empty. You reward effort and trying and persistence as well as successes. Wow, you put on your own shoes! Instead of, good going, but your shoes are on the wrong feet. What a way to go down swinging! Instead of, you struck out again. Emphasize strengths rather than harp on weaknesses. Focus and stress what a child does right rather than what is done wrong. Build on the natural strengths rather than accentuate the mistakes and screw-ups. You may have broken curfew, but I really am impressed that you did not lie this time. Acceptance of mistakes as learning opportunities is the fifth crucial ingredient. Mistakes are springboards for growth, not the end of the world. Allow failures. Provide a non-threatening atmosphere where mistakes are okay as long as you learn from them. Instead of hollering at a kid who has just spilled milk, how much more effective is it to hand over a towel to clean up the mess? Or maybe the two of you can clean up together. While not being overly critical, use mistakes as opportunities to learn and change and grow. Do not try to protect the child all the time from experiencing failure or feeling badly. You're doing that child no favors by shielding him or her from unpleasant things. You should not come to the rescue all the time, solving problems for the child before he or she has had a chance to discover solutions on his or her own. Rather than rush over to scoop up a baby who has just fallen while learning to walk, give that baby a chance to cope and rebound. If the baby is upset, then offer your good-hearted sympathy without making a major production of it. Sympathize with, validate feelings of failure or disappointment. Try not to make the mistake of making the child feel better by denying reality. But you're the best skater in the world. Does not promote optimism when the child is upset with all the falls and a sore bottom. It is better to validate the disappointment and anger and suggest taking a break before resuming the task. If a teenager loses a hotly contested school election, it does not promote optimism by saying that the race was not important in the grand scheme of things. Rather, express your sorrow that the child is hurting and be on standby when and if he or she wants to talk. If a child loses a championship ball game, emphasize with his or her hurt feelings of disappointment. This is not the time to offer criticism, no matter how constructive you think the criticism is. This is not the time to advise on how to win next time. Rather, this is a time for a hug, a sharing of a big hurt you remember happening to you, or perhaps silent availability. Authoritative parenting is the sixth crucial ingredient to establish and maintain optimism. Authoritative parenting is not to be confused with authoritarian that rhymes with barbarian. Authoritative parenting encompasses all five of the previous ingredients. It is firm discipline that is flexible and allows for discussion and negotiation. It is fair, loving, nurturing, and strict when necessary. It is not liberal, permissive, anything goes. Authoritative parenting does not use punishment as its primary tool to foster obedience. Negative reinforcement is relied upon more frequently, reserving punishment for more acute offenses. Authoritative parenting increases good behavior. Negative reinforcement increases good behavior. It substitutes good pro-social behavior in the place of bad behavior by taking away something unpleasant. To give an example, Susie hits Joey with no provocation. An authoritarian approach would be to spank Susie or to put her in timeout for however many minutes. Susie has no control over her situation and must pay the piper. This punishment focuses on stopping bad behavior. An authoritative approach would place Susie in timeout until she came up with something which would make Joey feel better, an action that would make things up to him. Susie has control over how long she is subjected to the aversiveness of timeout. The timeout stops as soon as restitution is made. Negative reinforcement focuses on increasing good pro-social behavior, and the added advantage is that it also stops bad behavior. These six crucial ingredients help establish optimism, which improves our psychological health. But optimism does not stop at improving our psychological or mental and emotional health. In addition, optimism improves physical health. Optimistic persons are more likely to take better care of themselves, like wearing sunscreen, eating sensibly, etc. Optimism curtails emotional problems that make physical disease and vulnerability and susceptibility worse. Optimism is linked with stronger immune defenses and greater numbers of disease-fighting cells. These have actually been measured. This is not pie-in-the-sky stuff. Harvard graduates who tested very pessimistic in 1946 turned out to be the least healthy 34 years later in 1980. In general, people with optimism recuperate better following bypass surgery and cancer treatments. Optimism improves health by enabling the alteration of behaviors that can kill. Smoking and drinking habits, unhealthy stress responses, bad nutrition, non-exercise, these things can be changed much more easily with optimism. optimism promotes that elusive thing known as happiness. Happiness is not a fixed, static state and is interspersed with unhappy times and blue moods. The prime place in the brain responsible for happiness is the left prefrontal cortex, as shown in functional MRIs and EEGs. Dr. Edward Diner of the University of Illinois has found that happiness is bred with social skills and close interpersonal ties to family and friends, and the commitment to spending time together. I'm recalling some hilarious stories of relatives thrust together as hurricane evacuees, spending too much time together, and surfacing with transient but trashy gutter mouths and hurt, angry feelings exposed. Spending time together advice does not include living together. Everyone needs space. Dr. Daniel Kahneman of Princeton University has distinguished between experiencing self and remembering self. People are far more likely to remember the emotional high and low points of an event, plus the ending. If something ends well, this reflection will color your actual happiness level present at the time of the event. When you recall a Disney World vacation, you muse over the happy ending rather than the problems of traffic, rude people, or long lines. Or if the ending was not so happy, the unhappy ending will cloud the real joyful moments and events that occurred earlier. Somehow the arrival of my priceless firstborn baby obliterated all the unpleasantness of morning sickness all the way through to the end, and a traumatic catheterization by a nurse who must have flunked anatomy. It obliterated the unpleasantness of the C-section surgery and the explosive spinal headaches that lasted almost 2 whole weeks. The awesome end result of a priceless baby was foremost in my reflections as I deliberately planned priceless baby number 2 within months. Likewise, the tragic ending of losing 2 newborns in a row obliterated for my daughter-in-law any pleasures of feeling the babies move, hearing their heartbeats, or seeing them apparently healthy on ultrasound. Dr. Martin Seligman of the University of Pennsylvania has discovered that of the 3 main ingredients of happiness, pleasure, engagement, and meaning, smiley-faced pleasure is the least influential, and engagement and meaning are far more consequential in whether or not a person is happy. Engagement means involvement with family, job, romance, and hobbies. Meaning is using personal strengths to achieve a larger purpose. You may not be able to control bad things that happen, like illness, unemployment, lost relationships, death of loved ones, accidents, flooding, hurricanes like Katrina and Rita and Gustav, and the literal loss of everything, loneliness, holidays without our favorite people, social events without a date, etc. You may not be able to control these bad things, but you can certainly be taught to control your interpretation of and response to these bad things. This does not mean sugarcoating all the bad stuff that happens to you. It means recognizing it for what it is, bad, but not allowing it to keep on extracting a toll indefinitely, not allowing it to victimize you as hostage indefinitely. Supple pine trees are able to bend in heavy winds. Macho oaks will crack and splinter. It is better to act as a supple pine tree in the face of trauma rather than as a macho oak. Bending with trauma and operating in spite of it, acknowledging and legitimizing it as bad and undesirable, This beats excessive shielding and running from trauma, minimizing tragedy as if it did not exist, or, like a macho oak tree, standing tall as if the trauma had met its match. Now, if cracks and splintering occur anyway, just due to the sheer enormity of a tragedy, pick up the pieces rather than pretend there is nothing broken. How you pick up the pieces, how you choose to mend, will determine the ultimate outcome. Learn how to be happy in misery rather than miserable because of it. Be a true survivor. Even if your upbringing did not generate optimism, even if unconditional love, conditional praise, choices, emphasis on the positive, acceptance of mistakes as learning opportunities, and authoritative parenting, even if these were not part of your daily existence, it is not too late. It is never too late. Better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Model a happy face for openers. You will experience some of the inner peace that goes with it. Genuine smiles are contagious. They enable recovery, and they have healing power all of their own. You can be sensitive and cheerful without being a sucker or pushover. There is a lot of wisdom in that old saying, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Misery may love company, but company does not love misery. This happy face includes language. What we say influences directly what we feel and what we think. Saying becomes believing. People prefer to be around pleasant people and to avoid negative, complaining ones. The ability to laugh heartily benefits in several ways. It exercises and tones the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. It relaxes us. It decreases muscle tension. So put on a happy face, including language, and laugh out loud. Create something to look forward to. Nurture hope and expectation by having something planned ahead. Be curious. Be excited about something in the future. Rediscover childlike awe and wonder for the simple things in life, like a colorful insect, the tingle of a wind chime, the aroma of cookies or bread baking, the warmth of a fluffy towel fresh out the dryer, the feel of cool water between the toes, the beauty of a sunrise and sunset, the greenness of a blade of grass, the sweetness of an apple, the twittering of a bird, the sight of a mosquito hawk or a butterfly, the antics of a squirrel, a puppy cocking its head with expression, a cat chasing its tail, dust particles sparkling in a sunbeam, the taste of chocolate, the smell of rain, the colors of a rainbow. The list goes on endlessly. Rediscover childlike awe and wonder for the simple things in life. Time management. Make time work for you instead of against you. Have well-planned schedules that use your time efficiently and balance work and playtime. Read one of Dr. Martin Seligman's books on optimism, like The Optimistic Child, and find out what the main optimism skills are and how to incorporate them into your daily life. 4 of these main optimism skills are cognitive skills: thought catching, evaluation of automatic thoughts, accurate explanations, and decatastrophizing. And 2 are social skills: assertiveness and negotiation. All 6 optimism skills are practical, concrete, and teachable. Seligman gives advice and presents programs based on 3 decades of painstaking research with hundreds of thousands of adults and children. There are also other books like David Meyer's The Pursuit of Happiness, and Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. One of Seligman's cognitive skills for establishing optimism is decatastrophizing, meaning stop making worst-case scenarios. Stop worrying about things before you have to. Chances are you may never have to face the feared event. And even if it turns out to be true, how does it help to worry twice? Cross bridges when you come to them. If traffic is horrendous, don't begin thinking about how mean the professor is going to be when you walk in late. And do not anxiously check your watch again and again. That will not make you arrive 1 second sooner. If your toddler throws a temper tantrum in the grocery store, do not begin fearing his ultimate doom as a juvenile delinquent or criminal behind bars. When your significant other breaks up with you, do not dwell on thoughts of being alone forever. More optimism tips. Substitute other activities for the ones you cannot participate in fully, but stay active. Find time to regularly exercise in some form. Exercise can increase the metabolic rate and help to burn calories even when you are relaxing. The higher metabolic rate lasts for hours after the exercise. Exercise also makes it easier to maintain a lower weight. An additional benefit of exercise is that it buffers stress. Stressful events then have less negative impact on health. People who exercise regularly have more effective coping skills with stress and more positive identities. Help someone else. This gets your mind off your own troubles faster than anything else. It's the do-good, feel-good phenomenon. Maybe you can donate time to community or church endeavors. Help a lonely elderly neighbor. Let somebody get in front of you in traffic. Let someone with a few items go ahead of you at the grocery. If you're not ready to be nice to people, maybe you can begin by caring for other living things like plants or pets. Start small. Work your way up to people. Hang around supportive folks who make you feel better about yourself. Make a new friend. Such social connectedness increases immunological functioning. Support groups also supply social connectedness, each helping the other. Heart attack survivors who are socially isolated are more likely to die sooner, especially so in older people. People with the most social ties and connectedness are least likely to catch a cold. Support group participation lowers the pain of breast cancer and increases the length of survival. Another study found that support group participation increases survival rate and immune function of those with skin cancer. Related to social support and health is faith or spirituality. For some, faith is strong medicine. Write or type or record a journal, especially when feeling your worst or feeling your best, and all the times in between. Record regularly the things you are grateful for. Writing is some of the best therapy in the world, and the cheapest, too. I have kept a journal or life account since my 14th birthday, many moons ago. Writing about trauma is associated with improved immunological functioning. Partly responsible is the social connectedness, even if no one reads it. I think I need to do some editing. I don't think I want my children to read all about our honeymoon. Guess I better stop teaching one of these days and get my life journal edited. Do something nice for yourself daily. A bubble bath, maybe? Special reading time for the newspaper or sports or romantic novel? Maybe having a cup of decaffeinated coffee while watching birds or squirrels out the window or on the porch or the patio. Listening to your favorite music, walking in the park, whatever floats your boat. Treat yourself kindly. This will help you to tolerate frustration better, to be more forgiving, to be less likely to overreact to criticism or to misinterpret events. Don't try to be super perfect. Be realistic about how much you can do, and learn to say no decisively when others impose more than you can handle and are too nervy with their requests. Being nice to self includes not letting others take advantage of you. Develop a stress-fighting plan and break it into small achievable steps, things you can accomplish one at a time. If college demands are overwhelming, pace yourself and schedule a set assignment each day. At the very least, plan to read over all daily notes. If 3 exams are scheduled on the same day, organize to study in advance for 2 of them. If 18 chapters have to be read for a class, aim to read 1 a week. If your child is consistently behaving horribly and you are at your wit's end, prioritize. Choose the one behavior you would most like to change. Zero in. Focus on that behavior and the daily steps you need to take to alter that one behavior effectively. Use your creative mind and visualize or rehearse in your imagination ways to cope well with the problem at hand. Do this instead of caving into anxiety-ridden thoughts. Picture a successful solution to the problem, or at least defuse stress by picturing a successful response to the problem if it cannot be changed or solved. These suggestions will help establish optimism, but maintaining a vibrant level of optimism after you have established it takes ongoing work. It's like a good marriage or significant relationship. Nourishment through continuing effort is vital for the excitement and progression to build. All things worth having come at some expense. Invest in optimism and be ready to reap its rich returns in the quality of life. Do it for yourself. Do it for those you love the most. How do I know that optimism is worth all the effort? Because I just know. I could bore you with umpteen life examples from my life and the lives of our 7 children. Instead, I'm going to leave you with an example from your ranks, a UNO student of mine who exemplified optimism. Jackie was, before her murder in 2000, a package of enthusiasm and hope and determination. She, at the age of 57, had reached her goal of graduating from college. If this does not seem monumental enough to you, add attention deficit disorder and spousal abuse and harassment. 3 days before her dreamed-of trip across the stage, her estranged husband of 3 years shot her dead and then himself outside the courthouse. But let's back up. Jackie carried 21 hours during her last semester. Her estranged husband was harassing her, stalking her, waking her with middle-of-the-night phone calls, especially when he knew she had a test the next day. Jackie, the optimist in March, decided to do something. She took pictures of her husband calling from a nearby public phone. She was going to corroborate these pictures with caller ID information to convince police who didn't believe her that she indeed was being victimized. commenting, "Fancy meeting you here," was, said Jackie, her fatal mistake. She was attacked inside her car. He told her he was going to kill her, and she fully believed him. Jackie was a tiny woman, and she kicked for her life. Both parties were arrested, but only Jackie was jailed for felonious assault with a weapon. It seems she did not remove her shoes before kicking for her life, nor drop her car keys. She languished for 3 days and nights in Orleans Parish Prison while her aggressor remained free. This humiliation would have conquered a lesser person, but Jackie did not complain. Her only requests from family, who had made fruitless trips to gain her release, were a coat and a sweater. When she recounted the trauma to me later, she said with a twinkle in her blue eyes, "I guess he looked worse than I did." Jackie, the determined optimist, refused to soften her academic load, even though nightmares and cold sweats and physical illness followed the unfair jailing and the continued harassment. Yes, continued harassment. "If I don't finish, he wins," she told me. "He is not going to stop me from walking across that stage." She told me this the Saturday before she was murdered. Jackie indeed picked up the pieces in a way that fostered further growth and positive development. She had endured a 30-year abusive marriage and then incredulously found herself in a second abusive marriage. She was going to use her knowledge and strength to counsel other women. Jackie was to have begun graduate school in the fall of 2000. Her optimism did not prevent tragedy. It just allowed her to get the most out of life despite it. No matter how tough things get with your academic life or personal life or work life, learn how to bounce back. How you choose to pick up the pieces will determine your recovery time. Like I've said, you can be happy in your misery, or you can be miserable in your misery. The choice is yours. Success lies in the balance. You have a lot to give and a lot to receive. Go after it with gusto. Arm yourselves with optimism and cheerfulness, and slay the ugly dragon of depression when it gets too persistent. You, my dear students, can be undefeatable with the resiliency that comes with optimism. Optimism fosters true self-esteem by teaching us how to work, play, have fun, think, argue, and express feelings more effectively. Optimism promotes an eagerness to learn, a willingness to confront challenges, self-reliance, and pride in our accomplishments. Optimism gives us confidence in the future, a sense of justice, and the courage to act on justice. Roll with the punches. Bounce back after bad things and setbacks happen. Be happy no matter what. This can all be yours if you establish and nurture and practice optimism.